Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and today we're going to be starting a vlog. I am really sorry if this is shaky. I have balanced my camera on my knee and it's the best I got. So I'm going to be reading an assortment of books, all by new to me authors. I have mentioned, I never actually did a goals video, but I think in like my first video for 2022, I mentioned that one of my goals for this year is to read more authors, get more new authors, that everyone recommends all these authors, and I tend to stick to and binge. Like, when I find an author that I like, I tend to read like all of their books, so I don't branch out a lot and just like read a lot of first books by authors. So for this video, I'm going to be reading, I think I'm going to read 3, depending on how long the vlog is. I might read 4, might read 2, who knows. But I will be reading books by new to me authors. The first book that I know I'm going to be reading, I just started it today, and that is Melanie Harlow. I am literally on chapter 1. I read listened to the first 5 minutes of the audiobook, so I literally have no idea what this is about, and I don't have any idea. But the book that I'm going to be starting with is Frenched by Melanie Harlow. It is an older one of hers. I think it might be one of her very early releases, but it's the one that I have currently on my one of my subscription services had it. So I will be reading that one. Then I don't know who else I'm going to read. I have a whole bunch of authors that I could choose from for this video. I'm just going to go with how I'm feeling, but the first one I am going to be starting is Frenched, so I'll let you know what I think when I actually know what it's about. My filming spot over here because I'm about to film a video, but I thought I would film an update first. I am on about to start chapter 13 of Frenched by Melanie Harlow, so I'm about 50% into it. I think chapter 12 was 50%, or maybe a little less than 50%, but I'm really enjoying it. It's very light and fun and flirty kind of thing. So basically what it's about is the heroine, she has been planning this crazy big wedding for her and her fiance, and then her fiance texts her a week before the wedding to be like, peace out, we're not getting married. So she obviously is super upset, but she's more upset about the fact that she doesn't get that this big wedding that she's been planning than about the fact that he is leaving her. So they obviously their relationship was much it was perfect on paper. They didn't actually like each other. It was very, as the book goes on, it's very easy to see that they didn't actually they didn't work. But basically she gets dumped at the altar, or the week before the altar, and her 2 best friends just encourage her to go on her honeymoon to Paris by herself. She's always wanted to go to Paris, since she was a kid. She has wanted to be there, wanted to experience France, and that's what she's wanted for her entire life, is a trip to Paris. And now that her honeymoon is kind of canceled, or is not a honeymoon anymore, her parents still, her best friends still encourage her to go on it and experience this trip that she's always wanted, and to kind of get some time alone to get away from everything. And so she goes very begrudgingly. She doesn't really want to, but she goes to Paris, and in the first day that she's there, she hates it. She keeps looking around and seeing happy couples and love, and she goes to the top of the Eiffel Tower and she sees somebody get engaged. So she's really mad at the world, and she ends up storming into this Canadian bar, and meets this bartender named Lucas, who is our hero, and he is not really her type at all. She, like, looks wise. He is both American and French. He offers to be her tour guide the next day to try and convince her to stay in France and give it, like, Paris another try. And so he is her tour guide and takes her to his favorite places in Paris. And they are starting to have feelings. The heroine's ex-fiance was, like, shitty in bed and was, like, she keeps comparing Lucas and the ex-fiance and realizing she really fits with the way that Lucas is doing things a lot better. So, like, she talks about how, like, Lucas keeps taking the metro and how her ex-fiance would have never done that because he was always, like, would take a cab, and how she has always loved vintage or antique things, and Lucas does too, but her fiance thought it was weird to own things that were used. So that she's kind of like, it's like being brought to the front of her attention how much her ex-fiance and her didn't actually fit together. It's very, very good. I'm really liking it. The heroine's personality in the beginning was, like, super irritating, but as she, like, relaxes more and goes with the flow a little bit more, she is much more easy to deal with, and I really like Lucas, so I'm having a good time with that. I love Paris. I went twice while I was living in Ireland for vacation, so I really, I had the same, ever since I was a kid, had always wanted to go, had always wanted to go to Paris. So I had, like, French trinkets around my room growing up because I always loved Paris and wanted to go there. So I relate to that with the heroine. And I really love the way that they're talking about going around to the different places in Paris, and, like, me remembering being in those places and missing it. So I'm having a good time, and I am liking Melanie Harlow's writing. It reminds me of a mix kind of between Megan Quinn and Helena Hunting, not with the Pucked series, but with the series before that. It's like the Shacking Up series by Helena Hunting, that kind of vibe, because there's one of them in that series that I really enjoyed, that was a, like, ditched at her wedding, ditched at the altar type thing, and then goes on her honeymoon alone, and I think that this book is, like, gonna be a win. I mean, it depends on how the second half goes, but so far I'm really liking it. So I'm really sorry for the, like, terrible angle and lighting over here. You're propped up on some books on my desk, but I am here to update you. I finished Frenched by Melanie Harlow, and I loved it. I am gonna give it 5 stars. I thought it was really, really fun, really enjoyable. The plot was so fun. The setting was amazing. I loved being in Paris for it. I was worried towards the end about how the conflict was gonna go, but it totally like came around, and, like, I really enjoyed how it went. So I'm really happy about that. This is one of the only books, though, that I really wish had an epilogue. I'm not usually, like, an epilogue type person, but the ending of this book almost made it feel like a happy for now kind of thing, like there was going to be a second one. And I don't think, because I know there's a second one in the series, but I think it follows a different character. Her 2 friends get their books in the other 2 books in the series, so I don't know if you just, like, are going to be able to see these main characters in that other books, but I did kind of wish that it had, like, a epilogue of them, like, happy together, you know what I mean? Because it ended with, like, they had reconciled and they were together, but I just would have liked to see them like happy, I guess, at the end, like a little bit more of like a ending feeling, because this one was very it was very realistic but open-ended, and I would have liked just like a glimpse, I guess, into their like happiness in the future. And I am not a person who, like, one of my main problems with that I have with epilogues is that I don't think happy in the future has to equal married with children. I just would have liked to like see them a little bit in the future, like still in love, you know what I mean? So there's that. I haven't picked what I'm gonna read next yet. It is like 2 days later because I've read a couple of books in between that are not for this vlog. But I think I am between 2 books. I know that I need to read Transcendence by Shea Savage. That's one of the ones that I really need to read. Tori and Sam's book club that's their book for this month, and I didn't participate last month or the month before because I didn't want to read the book last month, and they didn't have an audio book for the first month. But I would like to read that, and I've never read a Shea Savage book before, so that one would fit for this vlog. There was another one. Oh, and then the other one that I was thinking of is possibly Rustic Hearts by Amber Kelly. I saw Ava from Ava's Romance Books, is that what her channel is now called, posted on Instagram about this book, and I was super drawn in by the cover, and she said that if you liked, what is that book called? The Simple Wild, that you'll probably like this one, and I really liked the vibes of The Simple Wild, so I'm intrigued by this one, so that's definitely an option. I've been in like a very like lighthearted mood, probably because like life's been rough, so you know. So when life's going rough, I tend to read more happy and lighthearted books. Either way, I'm going in completely blind, so I will let you know what I pick when I pick something. Okay, so I apologize for this absolutely ridiculous angle, but it's what we got. So I decided to start reading Rustic Hearts by Amber Kelly, and I am not quite halfway through, but I'm like a good way through. I think I'm on chapter like 21. And I think there's like 50 chapters. And I am really liking it so far. It's so interesting. I have so many theories. So this one is about a girl who's grew up in this small town in Colorado. I think she lived there until she was like 12 years old. And then one night, in the middle of the night, her mom took her to New York City. And she was just like, we're moving to New York City. But it was like the middle of the night, and like, it's like super creepy. So her dad didn't go. She had no idea. She was always this big daddy's girl, and she's like so confused what's going on. But her mom moves her to New York City. And she keeps expecting her dad to come and follow her, and her dad never did. And so now it's 20 years later. Her mom, the story that she has is that her mom told her that her dad had been cheating on the mom, and that the dad was divorcing the mom so that gonna marry this woman that he was having an affair with, and move her and her 2 children that she raises, that are actually her niece and nephew, into the house that they had lived in. And was going to raise them. And that's what she's been told, like, by her mom. That's what she thought her whole life. So recently, it's like 20 years later, her name is Sophia. She's this big, up-and-coming jewelry designer. And she gets this call one day from her aunt, who she hasn't spoken to. She hasn't spoken to any of her dad's side of the family in like 20 years. Not since her mom took her to New York. So then she gets this phone call from her aunt, and her aunt says, your grandmother has died. And Sophia was really close to her grandmother when she was little, so she's kind of devastated. And the aunt tells her that they're having a service for the grandmother and that there's going to be a will reading, and that Sophia's mentioned in the will, and that the aunt wants her to come home for the service and the will reading. And so Sophia is a little apprehensive because she has built this up in her head. She hasn't spoken to her dad in 20 years. She hates him for what she believes. I don't think it's actually true. But she hates him for what he did. And she hates this woman that he married and these two kids who are getting what she thought was supposed to be her life. Like, she thinks that she's, like, in her brain. I mean, like, it's like what a kid would think is that these two people stole my dad. And I feel for her. I really do. I really, like, people keep telling her to, like, not blame the two kids or all this stuff for stealing. I would react a very similar way. And so she decides to go back to this small town in Colorado and see her family. Her friend convinces her that she's got all this unfinished business there and that she's never really going to get closure in her life until she talks to her dad and talks to all these people and actually, like, closes out that chapter of her life, because it's always kind of haunted her. And so she has gone there, and they had the service. She's really loves her two aunts. She has missed them. Her dad is kind of a dick. He hasn't spoken, like, more than, like, 10 words to her in the entire time that she's been there, and she's been there, like, a week at this point. She has found that the woman that he married, Madeline, and her her niece and nephew that she raises, are really nice. Well, one of them, the niece is. She really likes the women in the house. But the man, the guy who is the nephew of the woman that her dad's married to, his name is Braxton. And he is kind of a dick in the beginning. He makes a lot of assumptions about Sophia and thinks that she's acting very, like, hoity-toity. He thinks that it's ridiculous that she's wearing all of this, like, fancy clothing, and that he just makes a lot of assumptions about her based on how she looks. To be fair, though, she makes a lot of assumptions about him. He is, like, the other point of view that you get in the story. So he's the hero, which is such an interesting dynamic for a hero because, like, he's been raised by her dad this whole time. They're not related, but he's been raised by her dad this whole time. So, like, super weird. So I guess, like, it depends on if, like, the aunt, so he's her step cousin, maybe? I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic. But I'm really intrigued, and I think the mom lied. I think that he didn't actually have an affair with the lady. I think the mom just wanted to, like, ditch and go to New York, because the mom is this, like, big, over-dramatic person in the beginning. It's very much like she wants Sophia to get married to a rich guy. Like, she's married to a rich guy. And she had always wanted to be an actress and had all these big dreams and everything. And I think she just wanted to move to New York and have her chance at being in the Broadway like she always wanted. And so she took Sophia. I really don't think that the father had an affair. I think it's, like, all on the mom. So I'm super intrigued to see. But it reminds me, like, so, Avery was right. Like, I definitely get the Simple Wild vibes. I also think that it's giving me, it's very, like, not Grumpy Sunshine, but they're both grumpy. It's like grumpy. It's so interesting. And I'm really enjoying myself. So I'm going to keep going, and I will let you know when I have something to say. Good morning. It's so early, so excuse my appearance. I'm wearing my new Sophie Lark hoodie. It says fucking savage on the back. That's my cat. I am here to update you. I have many things to say. First, I finished Rustic Hearts. I don't know if I said that before, but I finished it last night, and I'm going to give it 5 stars. This reading vlog is going amazingly.
I freaking loved this. It was so good. I loved the way it ended. I loved how the heroine grew over the book. I really, really liked her. The hero, their relationship was very interesting, and it developed quickly, in like an enemies to lovers style. But I think it made sense how quickly it developed, based on how the heroine was changing. Like, the more that she became open to the town and to being back in the family, the more that she became open to him. Sorry, that's my cat. And Roxy, come here, Roxy. And I really, really loved all the family dynamics in it. I really enjoy a complicated family dynamic in books. I think it's so interesting. This book reminded me of like a mashup of so many books that I love. It reminded me of Riffs and Refrains by Devney Perry, which I absolutely loved, which is another story of a girl returning back to her small town for the first time after a really long time for her grandmother's funeral. And reconnecting with her family, and I just really loved that book too. This one also, again, like Avery said when she was recommending it, it does give me the Simple Wild vibes with a reconnecting with a father. And it also gave me All Roads Lead Here vibes in a very interesting way. It was just, I think it was like the grumpiness of the hero, and how he opened to the heroine was just reminding me of it. Plus trying to like reconnect with your roots and your family, which is just like what the heroine is trying to do in All Roads Lead Here by moving back to the small town. So I really, really loved it. I almost started like tearing up at one point in the book which had nothing related to like the plot or the love story, but it was because of a saying that one of the aunts of the heroine said, which I literally had to like pause the audiobook, and like I started freaking out and yelled to my mom to talk to her about it, because the two aunts in the book were reminding me of my grandmother a lot, just like their nosiness and their just like a whole bunch of things just about their personalities. Like the combined personalities of the two of them were reminding me of my grandmother. And I was thinking about my grandmother anyway, because this book is about your grandmother dying, and my grandmother passed away last year, or in 2020. And one of the aunts said to the heroine a saying that my grandmother used to say to me all the time, and I had never like heard that saying outside of my grandmother saying it to me, so I was just like really excited, and I went to tell my mom, and I said her the saying, and she was like, "That sounds so familiar, where have I heard that before?" And I was like, "Grandma used to say it all the time." And my mom was like, "Oh my god, yes." And my mom started like tearing up too, so it was just really cute. A really cute moment, and I just felt really connected to my grandmother. But I really, really loved the story, and I am definitely going to continue with the series. This is another one, though, where I checked Frenched after I finished it, because I was like, oh, I want to read the second one, and the second one doesn't have an audiobook. This is the same thing. The rest of the series by Amber Kelly doesn't have an audiobook, so that's frustrating, but I'm still going to attempt them on ebook. After I finished that, I took it took me ages to figure out what to try next, because I really wasn't in the mood for all the things that I had previously mentioned that I had the option of having. So I went looking for an author that I was interested in, and I have heard the author that I end up choosing. I have heard so much about her. The author that I ended up choosing writes small town romances, and that's just like what I was in the mood for after reading Rustic Hearts. And that is Claire Kingsley. I had never read a book by Claire. I've never read a book by Claire Kingsley, but I have constantly seen good things about her Bailey Brothers series, so I wanted to try that one. It says so like twice on Goodreads, like that the stories are meant to be read in order, and that the series should start. You should start with the first one, like read them in order. In true Victoria fashion, I am not. I was not interested in reading book 1 and 2. Book 1 and 2 follow the same couple, so like book 1 ends on a cliffhanger. It's kind of like a book that's split into 2 parts. But I'm not super interested in that story, especially like just not right now. I wasn't in the mood for it. So instead I started with book 3. And it's made perfect sense so far, and I'm over 50% into it, so I am just going with it. Like, you can totally start with book 3. So that's where I am. I am over 50% into it. I think it's called Unraveling Him, but it's book 3 in the Bailey Brothers series. I, like I said, love books that follow family dynamics, and this is a sibling book that each book follows different siblings, so I obviously love those. The Ward sisters, the Harris brothers are some of my favorite series. I love series that follow siblings. So I am really enjoying it. This one is about a very grumpy hero. It's Grumpy Sunshine, and it's about a very grumpy, kind of reclusive hero. He lives apart from his family in this small town. Like, his family members, he has 4 brothers, I think, and their parents died when they were younger, and they were raised by their grandmother. And their grandmother and his 3 brothers, and then his 4th brother and that brother's fiance, all live on like the same street in this small town. And he lives like on the outskirts of town. He just like separates himself from people and everything. And he's a mechanic. And he restores classic cars. And the heroine is the daughter of a man that he sold him a car that he ended up finding out was stolen. So the heroine's dad is into like some shady shit. And the heroine has worked for her dad for ages. Her dad's like super overbearing and like obsessive. Like, he like, that's not the right word, but he's like very protective is not the right word either, because it's not really protection, but he's like, he's controlling. And her mother left her when she was young. And she has recently left her, at the beginning of the book, she leaves her father after finding out that he was back dealing with shady shit. Her father had some run-ins with the law when she was younger, and she had made him promise to get out of it and not do that anymore. But she finds out that he is still dealing with illegal stuff, and she doesn't want to be any part of that. And then she also finds out that her best friend is sleeping with her dad, and she's like not okay with that. So she runs away from that, packs up her stuff into her car, and she drives to Evan, who is this mechanic that her dad worked with. She had only met him once before, and it wasn't really meeting. It was just like they had seen each other when her dad was doing business. But when she first saw him, felt like drawn to him. So she goes to him, and they strike up a deal, and is basically like, if her car needs repairs, so she's like, if you allow me to repair my car in your shop, I will help you find a car to replace the one that my dad had sold you that ended up being stolen. Because he's trying to find like a fancy classic car to restore for this car show that he wants to be a part of. And the heroine and him end up going on this road trip to pick up a classic car, and I love this road trip. Like, it was such a great way for the two of them to start their romance, because the hero, because he is very reclusive, doesn't like to be around people, and he just kind of separates himself from everyone, but being forced to be in a car on a road trip with this heroine who's so bubbly and sunshiny and wacky. Like, she talks to her plants and she makes friends with the squirrels, and she's just very like whimsical and sweet and sunshiny. And so them being forced to be in a car together is like the only way the hero would allow like that. But she like really like permeates into his barriers, and it's so cute. I really am really liking it. I can already also pick up on other relationships and things that are going to happen in the rest of the series. Like, I'm pretty sure I know like who at least 2 of the books are about, which is always fun. Or like I suspect anyway. But it's very, very interesting. And the Baileys in this small town also have a feud going on with the Havens. So that's a whole other like drama that's happening. So I don't think I could ever live in a really small town, but I also find them so interesting. I think that they're like so hilarious, the idea of like knowing everyone. And because this town is so small, and the fact that like Evan is so grumpy and reclusive, the fact that he has a woman staying with him is like the talk of the town, and the town is so gossipy that they like keep making up these like ridiculous things about who this woman is. And so like there's like a rumor that she's a mail order bride, and there's a rumor that he saved her from a cult, and there's a rumor that she grew up underground because her parents were like doomsday preppers. And it's hilarious, and I'm just like super enjoying myself, and it's just going really well, and I'm really enjoying it. So this could end up being like, if it ends well and the second half of the book, this could end up being another win for this vlog, and I'll have had 3 authors that I really, really like. So yay for trying new authors. I'm glad I did this and forced myself to finally read these authors. But I'm really enjoying myself, and I will let you know if that changes or if I finish.
Okay, so I'm in the same spot as before, so sorry about that. But I finished the Claire Kingsley book. I really liked it. I really, really liked it. I thought the heroine was like just weird enough that she was not annoying, but was like fun and interesting. The hero was all kinds of grumpy and like such a good grumpy hero, and I really liked how he opened up with loving the heroine. Like he had been separated from his brothers, not like physically separated, but like emotionally separated. He didn't like feel like he belonged with them, and as he grew to love the heroine, he let himself back into his family, which he really needed. And I don't think he even realized how much he needed it until he was back with his family. There was a, not really suspense type plot, but like a plot with her father that was going on also, with her father being involved in criminal activity. And I thought that was done really well, but it was not really like out of the blue, but it was an interesting conflict for them to have. It's not what I was expecting, I guess, would be where I'd go with that. But I like that the father was able, or that the heroine was able to like make a decision and get out from her father. So that, I really, really liked it. I think I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. There was just something about it that like, it's not quite 5 stars, but I really did like it a lot. And I actually think, because I'm still in the mood for small town romances, that I'm probably just gonna go into the next one right now. But that is gonna be it for this vlog. Those are the 3 books that I've read. I think my favorite of the ones that I read was probably Rustic Heart, just because how emotionally connected I felt to it. Like, I really liked how I felt while I was reading it. But I really, really loved all three of them, and I'm so happy to have three new authors to go and read now. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know down in the comments below what authors that I should read, that I need to read next. But I hope that you have a great day. Please subscribe so you can see me in more videos.